for this one. There's no cure for this one! 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 This one! This one! This one! There's no cure for this one!
Hello everyone, I'm Tony Doherty and welcome to another week of Max's Muscle TV. Sadly, this is the final episode in this series, folks, but as always, we'll be going out with a bang, as tonight I'll be taking you through a brutal leg workout that's not for the faint-hearted, but is guaranteed to get you results. In a Muscle TV exclusive, we go behind the scenes at the IFBB Australian Grand Prix to chat to Arnold Classic winner, Branch Warren. And for something a bit different, we go behind the scenes at the FitX Sport and Fitness Expo. All this and more, folks, but first up in our final show, you're in for a real treat. It's not very often you get to go into the inner sanctum with a top fighter. Well, that's exactly what we'll be doing tonight with Paul Fyfield and his crew. Paul's no stranger to anyone that knows the fight game. He's trained multiple world champions in both boxing and kickboxing. As a one-time fighter himself, he's still in ridiculous shape for a bloke his age, let alone any age. He's a great friend of Muscle TV, and tonight he's going to take you through a training session fit for a world champion.
I started training in martial arts when I was 14. It's 1973. I had my first kickboxing fight when I was 16 and the last one when I was 23. I started teaching kickboxing in the middle of that, so probably when I was about 20 years old. Some of the big names I've trained in kickboxing are Tosca Petrides, of course, and Sammy Greco. They were both multiple world champions. Tosca Petrides had 70 or 80 fights. Sammy had 50 or so. I've had a number of Australian champions in boxing, Tosca being one of them, Adrian Belling being another, Kid K. Karim being another one, Tony Picasso being another one, Eddie Delic. There's a lot of similarities between training a kickboxer and a boxing, but there are differences. And for example, if you're standing as a boxer, you can put a lot of weight on that front leg. You can't do that when you're kickboxing because I'll just kick your leg straight away, so your stance is slightly different. So little differences like that I've got to be aware of. It's good to train one-on-one sometimes, and it's good to train in a group. Training in a group gives them gives the whole feeling atmosphere, so that they actually, if you want them to work very, very hard, it's a good idea to train them in a group because they feed off each other. If you want to just work on some specific techniques, then the one-on-one is a much better way to do it. At the moment in my training guys, there's a few guys who don't fight. There's 3 or 4 amateur boxers. There's 2 or 3 professional fighters who in the state levels and the Aussie titles, and then there's a couple of kickboxers who are Australian champions. Some people say that by putting people in who aren't fighters in with top level fighters that you might drag them down, but I know a lot of people who are very, very good sparring who've never fought. You see that all over the world. People don't achieve as fighters, but they're very, very good in the ring and very, very good sparring. So it's good to have these people in there. They know their place. They know that they don't fight. So it's an advantage to have them in the gym because they can help out and step back when they need to. But if they're fighting as well, then you have to concentrate on them as well. Yeah, today we're going to do a little workout that incorporates most aspects of training. We'll do a little bit of bag work, a little bit of shadow work, a little bit of in-close sparring, a little bit of pad work, a few exercises, and we'll finish off with a bit of sparring. Of course, with any training session you have to warm up. I'll get the boys to do a little bit of shadow. It's a very good way to warm up. Gets them on their toes, loosens their back up, loosens their shoulders up. Training is very, very important. You have to simulate what's going to happen in the ring. So you must have your days in training when you feel like throwing up, because that's what's going to happen when you get in the ring. You get so tired, and you have to get used to that when you're training. After the warm-up, I'm going to throw them in to do some quite intense bag work. Only 2 or 3 rounds to really get the feeling of stimulating the fight, because usually the first couple of rounds is when things start to happen. When I do bag work, I like to simulate what they're doing in the ring. It's 3 minutes on, But I only give them 30 seconds rest usually, and I'm going to ask for a high work rate and sharpness in their punches, so that they are very tired at the end of it, because I want them to work on some in-close sparring as soon as they finish that. In-close sparring is basically what I call touch sparring. Is one person punches away, the other person defends. I keep it in close, so we're talking rips, uppercuts, hooks. And it's a good way to get your eye in to read what someone else is throwing. It's a good way of conditioning, getting punched in the body a little bit, tapped in the head, make sure your hands are tight for your defence. After some in-close sparring, I'm going to do some pad work. Pad work makes you be more specific with your punches. And as a trainer, you can hold the pads the way you want to hold them, so that they punch in the way you want them to punch. So pad work is very, very important. For example, if they're throwing a straight right hand all the time, you'd like them to roll it a little bit over the top, then you'll hold the pad slightly this way, so if they throw a straight punch, it doesn't actually feel good for them. They want to come down so that they come in perpendicular to that pad, so you can hold that pad slightly differently. Or if they're throwing a rip shot in a certain way and you don't like the way they throw it, you can change the direction of where you hold the pad, so they have to throw it in the way that you want them to throw it. I'd like to show you guys a little bit of differences that we do with some of our pad work. This is some pad work where we might have 3 people holding pads for 1 person. So he learns to react very quickly to turn and punch, turn and punch. It keeps your concentration really, really aware, and it's very, very tiring. After we do the pad work, I'm going to get a couple of boys to spar, get some kickboxing sparring and some boxing sparring. A lot of people ask me questions about shins and how you condition them, and they've seen movies where they kick the banana trees and all that sort of stuff. You do condition them, you have heavy bags that you kick. You just tap away with each other, kicking each other in the thighs, and your shins do get tougher over time. But if you go too hard too early, you can damage them and they will never come back. You've got to be careful of your shins, because conditioning is very good, and if you overdo it, kick too many banana trees too quickly, well, you're not going to have very conditioned shins, they're going to be stuffed shins instead. After the sparring, we usually cool down maybe with a little bit of shadow sparring, and then I get them to do a few abs, because, as I say, summer's just around the corner, even though it is winter. The boys like their abs. And the best way to keep abs is to get them in the first place. If you're training for a marathon run, it takes more than 3 months to get ready to run a marathon. If you've never run before, it's probably going to take you over a year of training, slowly, slowly building up. And the same with the intense sort of training. If you've never done anything, you can't just jump in and join in with us, because you're going to break down. If you've been training at a medium level for some time, then yeah, you can jump in with us and just back off when you have to back off. There's a couple of guys who've just come back from overseas, have been overseas for a while, and they'll jump straight in with us. They know when to back off, and I know when to back them off, and I say, okay, you've had enough today, and I'll push them out. People ask, how intense do you have to train for a fight? Do you train more intensely for an Australian title as distinct from just a local fight? Well, I've got amateurs up there who fight 3 rounds, and they're probably the fittest boys here, because every fight should be treated as if it's a world title fight. You should train hard for every fight as if it's the biggest fight you've ever had, because you don't want to go in there and lose. Because if you just lose a little fight, it's the same as losing a big fight, you've lost.